The sky over Seoul was painted in shades of velvet and silver, and Queen stood on the balcony, letting the cold breeze brush against her glowing face. Her belly had grown beautifully round, and her skin shimmered with that soft pregnancy glow. She wore a silk robe that Jun-tae had bought her. The man who once barked orders now silently adored her from the doorway. He leaned against the glass wall, a glass of whiskey in his hand. His sharp jawline looked tense, his eyes darker than usual. For weeks, he'd been fighting something he couldn't name. A feeling that crawled into his chest every time she smiled or touched her stomach. "Do you always stare like that?" Queen asked without turning. Her voice was calm, teasing. Jun-tae took a slow sip. "You're in my house, remember? I can stare if I want." She turned her head slightly, the corner of her lips curling. "Correction, I'm in our house. I'm carrying your child. That makes me part owner." He smirked but said nothing. Her boldness had become a weapon. She didn't fear him anymore, and that both irritated and excited him. Queen placed her hands on the railing and sighed softly. "You know, I used to think rich men like you didn't have hearts. Just cold money and expensive taste." Jun-tae walked closer, his footsteps echoing behind her. "And now," she turned, her eyes meeting his. "Now I think you hide your heart so you won't feel guilty when you hurt people." He froze. The words sliced through his pride. "You think I'm heartless? I think you're scared," she said softly. "Scared to care about someone you can't control." For a long moment he said nothing. The sound of the city filled the silence. Then he stepped forward, his voice low. "You talk too much, Queen. Then stop listening." She shot back, walking past him. But before she could go far, he caught her wrist. Not roughly this time, but gently, as if he was afraid she'd disappear. "Don't walk away," he whispered. Something shifted in her chest. She looked up at him. The ruthless Mafia boss, the man who once treated her like a transaction, and saw something new in his eyes. Fear, desire, regret. "Why shouldn't I?" she asked. "You made it clear this is just business." Jun-tae's grip tightened slightly. "It was business," he said. "Now I'm not so sure." Her heart thudded. She wanted to say something, but words failed her. So she looked away, hiding the sudden rush of emotion. "Let me go, Jun-tae," she murmured. He did, slowly, watching her walk to the bedroom. That night, he didn't sleep. He kept replaying her words. "You're scared to care about someone you can't control." The next morning, the mansion smelled of pancakes and fresh fruit. Queen stood in the kitchen wearing a loose t-shirt and her natural curls tied up. She hummed to herself as she flipped pancakes, completely unaware that Jun-tae had been watching her again. This time, from the kitchen doorway, she turned, startled. "You're up early." "I couldn't sleep," he said. "You made breakfast?" "Someone had to. You'd starve if I left it to your housekeeper," she teased. He walked closer, eyeing the food. "You shouldn't be standing too long." She rolled her eyes. "I'm pregnant, not dying." He actually smiled, a rare, real smile, and for the first time Queen saw the boy beneath the Mafia boss. The one who maybe once loved and got hurt. They sat together at the marble counter. The silence between them wasn't cold anymore. It was warm, slow, careful. "You know," she said between bites, "you look different when you smile." He looked up. "Different how?" "Like you're not plotting someone's death," she said, giggling. He chuckled softly, shaking his head. "You're unbelievable." "Thank you," she said, sipping her juice. "I try." Later that day, Jun-tae surprised her by driving her out of the mansion. "Where are we going?" she asked, clutching her seatbelt as his black Bentley sped down the quiet roads. "Somewhere you can breathe," he replied. They arrived at a private beach, quiet and clean. The wind played with her robe as she walked barefoot on the sand. Jun-tae followed, his hands in his pockets, watching her every step. "This is beautiful," she whispered. "You actually did something nice for once." He smiled faintly. "Don't get used to it." She turned to face him. Too late. He stared at her. The woman he had paid, insulted, ignored, and realized how much she had changed his world without even trying. She had turned his mansion into a home, his cold heart into something that could ache. "Queen," he called quietly. She turned. He walked closer, slowly. When this baby is born, will you disappear? Her lips parted in surprise. That's what we agreed, remember? I get paid, you get your heir. He swallowed. What if I don't want you to leave? The words hung in the air, trembling with emotion. Queen's heart skipped. She didn't know if he was joking or confessing. Don't play with me, Juntae, she whispered. I'm not. His voice was low, serious. I don't know when it started, but I can't stand the thought of you not being here. She stared at him, and for the first time, she saw no mask, no arrogance, just truth, raw and terrifying. Then maybe you should have thought about that before treating me like I was just a contract. He looked down, guilt flashing in his eyes. You're right. Queen took a step back, her heart heavy. Feelings won't fix what's broken. Not this time. And she walked away, leaving him on the sand, staring after her. The ruthless mafia boss who finally realized he'd fallen for the one woman he was never supposed to love. Rain poured over Seoul like the sky itself was trembling. The wind howled against the glass walls of Juntae's mansion, and thunder rolled in the distance. Inside, Queen sat on the couch, wrapped in a thick blanket, her hands resting protectively over her belly. She was 8 months and 3 weeks pregnant. Glowing, beautiful, and exhausted. Her eyes were swollen from crying the night before. Ever since that conversation on the beach, Juntae had been acting strange. Softer, quieter. He wasn't barking orders or mocking her anymore. Instead, he'd been truly trying, to be kind. But Queen had built walls around her heart. She didn't know if it was too late to trust him again. When he walked into the living room that night, she didn't even look up. He stood behind her for a moment, watching her breathe. You didn't eat dinner, he said quietly. I wasn't hungry. You should eat, he said again, stepping closer. She turned slowly. Why do you care now? He sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. Because I was wrong. About everything. Queen looked away. You were cruel, Juntae. You made me feel like a tool. Like I didn't matter. I know. His voice cracked a little, and that was new. But I see it now. You mattered more than I let myself admit. Her eyes softened, but she quickly looked away, blinking back tears. Words are easy. Action isn't. Juntae sat across from her. Then let me prove it. I don't expect forgiveness overnight, Queen. I just want to be here. For you. For the baby. She wanted to believe him. Her heart screamed yes, but her pride said no. Before she could respond, a sharp pain shot through her stomach. She gasped, clutching her belly. Queen! Juntae jumped up instantly. What's wrong? Her face tightened in pain. I don't know. It's too early. Her breath came in short bursts. Then another contraction hit. Oh my God! She whispered. It's happening. Juntae's heart slammed in his chest. Panic flashed through him. No, it's not time yet. He knelt beside her, grabbing her hand. Breathe, Queen. Just breathe. Okay? She groaned, squeezing his hand tightly. Don't tell me to breathe, you arrogant, He winced but didn't let go. I'm calling the doctor. Within minutes, the private medical team he had on standby rushed into the mansion. The doctor checked her quickly, then turned to Juntae with a serious look. She's in labor, Mr. Han. We need to get her to the hospital now. Queen screamed again, gripping the armrest. Oh, this baby hates me. Juntae tried to stay calm, but his pulse was wild. Hang in there, Queen. I've got you. They rushed through the rain, Juntae holding her protectively as bodyguards cleared the way. In the car, he held her hand tightly. Don't you dare pass out on me, she snapped between contractions. You started this. He actually laughed shakily. You volunteered. She glared at him through tears. Because I needed money, not love. He looked at her, the pain in her voice stabbing at his heart. Then I'll pay you forever if it means keeping you alive. She went silent, overwhelmed by the mixture of pain and emotion. At the hospital, the air was thick with urgency. Nurses moved swiftly, doctors issued commands. Juntae was told to wait outside the delivery room, but he refused. I'm not leaving her, he said firmly. Sir, it's procedure. Do I look like I care about your procedure? He snapped. his Mafia tone returning just long enough to make the doctor step aside. Inside, Queen lay on the bed, sweating, trembling, crying. She looked up at him weakly. "You shouldn't be here. I should have been here from the start," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "You're not alone, Queen. Not anymore." She squeezed his hand as another contraction tore through her. "I hate you right now." He smiled softly, voice breaking. "That's fine. Just bring our baby safely. Okay?" Hours passed. The storm outside roared, but inside, Juntae's world went still. Every scream, every breath, every heartbeat felt like it was pulling his soul apart. Finally, a cry pierced the room. High, loud, and beautiful. Queen collapsed back on the pillow, tears spilling down her cheeks. The doctor smiled. "It's a boy." Juntae's knees nearly gave out. He stood frozen, staring at the tiny baby wrapped in a white towel. The nurse placed the baby in Queen's arms, and she smiled through her exhaustion. "He's perfect," she whispered. Juntae stepped closer, his chest rising with emotion he couldn't contain. "Queen." She looked up at him, her eyes glistening. "Meet your son." For the first time in his ruthless life, Juntae felt tears roll down his face. He touched the baby's tiny hand and let out a shaky laugh. "He looks like you," he said softly. "Then he's lucky," Queen whispered. He chuckled, his voice trembling. "No, he's lucky he has you." The baby yawned, and Juntae leaned down, pressing his lips to Queen's forehead. "Thank you," he whispered, "for giving me something real." She smiled faintly. "Don't thank me yet. You have to prove you can be a father." He nodded slowly. "I will. I promise." For once, it wasn't a promise made by a mafia boss. It was a promise made by a man whose heart had finally found peace. That night, as Queen slept in the hospital bed with their newborn beside her, Juntae sat quietly in the corner, watching them. The storm had stopped, and moonlight poured through the window, casting a soft glow over the room. He whispered to himself, "I thought power was everything. But this is what it means to live." When Queen stirred and opened her eyes, she saw him smiling faintly. "You're still here?" she murmured sleepily. "Always," he said simply. For the first time, she believed him. The soft cries of the newborn filled the hospital room, blending with the quiet hum of machines. Morning sunlight slipped through the blinds, painting the walls with a gentle gold. Queen lay in bed, her head resting on a white pillow, while her tiny son slept peacefully beside her. Juntae sat by the window, staring at the little bundle in silence. His black suit jacket hung loosely on his shoulders, and his usually perfect hair was messy from the sleepless night. For the first time, the mafia boss looked human, vulnerable. He hadn't left her side since the delivery. He had refused calls, ignored meetings, and shut off his phone. The only thing that mattered now was the fragile life he had helped bring into the world, and the woman who had carried it with strength he could barely understand. Queen stirred, her voice low. "You've been staring for hours." He looked up, startled, then smiled faintly. "You noticed." "I'm not blind," she said softly, turning her head toward him. "You haven't slept." "I couldn't." "Why not?" He looked at the baby again. "Because I was scared I'd wake up and this would all be gone." The words hit her heart like a quiet storm. Juntae, the cold, ruthless man who used to speak with pride and arrogance, was finally showing the cracks. Queen smiled weakly. "You're not the same man who hired me, you know?" He raised an eyebrow. "Good or bad?" "Good," she said. "Very good." He leaned back, letting out a tired sigh. "You were right, Queen. I was scared. Scared to feel, scared to care. I thought love was weakness. But when you screamed last night, when I thought something could happen to you or the baby, I realized that I would burn the world down to keep you both safe." Her lips parted, but no words came. "I never wanted to care about anyone again," he continued quietly. "In my world, love gets you killed. It makes you soft. But then you came, bold, loud, impossible to ignore. And suddenly I couldn't control anything anymore." She chuckled softly. "You hated that." "I still do," he admitted. "But I love it even more." Her heart skipped. The room went still. Juntae. He stood slowly and walked to her bedside. He sat down and took her hand gently, his thumb brushing her knuckles. I don't know when it started, he said, his voice trembling. Maybe when you talked back to me that first day. Maybe when you made breakfast and laughed like you weren't afraid of me. Or maybe it was when I saw you holding our son and realized you were never just carrying my child. You were carrying my heart. Queen blinked hard, tears welling in her eyes. You can't just say things like that, she whispered. You'll confuse me. He smiled sadly. Then let me make it clear. He leaned closer, his eyes locked with hers. I love you, Queen. Not because you gave me a child, not because you're beautiful, though you are, but because you're the only person who ever looked me in the eye and saw a man, not a monster. Tears slid down her cheeks. You mean that? He nodded. With everything I am. Queen covered her face with her hand, shaking her head. You drive me crazy, Juntae. I told myself not to fall for you. I reminded myself every single day this was business. But somewhere along the line, I started looking forward to your voice, your footsteps, your stupid attitude. He chuckled softly. My attitude? Yes, she said, smiling through tears. You're rude, stubborn, and completely impossible. But when you're quiet like this, you're real. You make me feel safe. I hate that I love that. He cupped her face gently, his thumb wiping away her tears. Then don't hate it. Just let it be. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Two broken souls finding something whole in the middle of their chaos. Later that day, Queen was discharged from the hospital. Juntae insisted on carrying both her and the baby into the car himself, despite her playful protests. You don't have to act like I'm glass, she said, laughing. You just gave birth, he replied firmly. You are glass, she smirked. You're lucky I can't run right now, or I'd kick you for that. He grinned. I'd let you. The car ride back to the mansion was quiet and tender. Juntae drove slower than usual, one hand on the steering wheel, the other occasionally glancing toward the baby carrier beside Queen. When they arrived, the staff lined up to greet them, bowing deeply. Queen felt awkward but proud. For the first time, she didn't feel like an employee. She felt like family. As the evening sun bathed the living room in gold, Queen fed the baby while Juntae watched from across the couch. You keep staring again, she said, smiling. He shrugged. You're too beautiful not to. She rolled her eyes. Smooth. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. I mean it, Queen. I've lived surrounded by diamonds, power, and women who only wanted my money. But none of them ever glowed like you do when you hold our son. Her heart melted again, but she hid it behind a teasing smirk. You sure you're not drunk? I'm drunk, he said, standing up and walking toward her. But not on alcohol. Her breath hitched as he knelt in front of her, one hand brushing the baby's tiny foot, the other resting lightly on her knee. I want to start over, he said softly. No contracts, no payments. Just me, you, and him. She blinked, tears returning. You're serious? Dead serious. She looked at him for a long time, her chest rising and falling with emotion. Then promise me one thing. Anything. Never treat me like I'm beneath you again. I'm not your project, Juntae. I'm your equal. He nodded immediately. I know that now. You're the strongest person I've ever met. She smiled through tears. Then maybe we can try. He leaned closer, eyes locked with hers. Try what? She smiled shyly. Being something real. He leaned in slowly until his lips met. Hers. Soft, hesitant, but full of years' worth of unsaid emotions. The kiss deepened, sweet and trembling, the kind that rewrites everything that came before it. When they finally pulled away, the baby cooed softly, breaking the silence. They both laughed. He approves, Queen said. Juntae smiled, brushing her hair back. Then I guess it's official. She tilted her head. What is? That I'm completely, hopelessly in love with my surrogate. Queen laughed through her tears, resting her head on his shoulder. And I'm completely, hopelessly in love with my boss. He kissed the top of her head gently. Not your boss anymore, just your man. The baby stirred again, and they both looked down at him, the small, perfect symbol of their unexpected love. Outside, the moon rose high over Seoul. The same city that had seen Juntae destroy countless lives now watched him protect too. For once, he wasn't thinking about money, power, or control. He was thinking about home and the woman who had given it to him. That night, when Queen finally drifted to sleep with the baby in her arms, Juntae stood by the window, watching the lights of the city below. He took a deep breath, pulled a velvet box from his pocket, and opened it. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, silver with a single diamond. He whispered to himself, "Tomorrow. I'll ask her tomorrow." The morning sunlight filtered through the silk curtains of Juntae's mansion, spilling across the polished marble floor. A calm silence filled the air, the kind that only came after chaos. In the nursery, Queen was humming softly, her son pressed against her chest. His tiny hand clutched the fabric of her robe while she rocked him gently, her eyes half closed with peace. From the doorway, Juntae watched them. He still couldn't believe that this was his life now, that he could have this softness, this quiet, this family. For years, he'd lived in violence, hiding behind money and guns. But Queen had walked into his world and turned it upside down. He held a small velvet box in his hand, the ring glinting faintly in the light. His heart pounded harder than it ever had before. Not from fear of an enemy, but from fear of losing her if he said the wrong thing. When Queen finally noticed him, she smiled. "You've been standing there forever, planning your next Mafia mission?" He smirked, slipping the box into his pocket. "Maybe." She raised an eyebrow. "Don't tell me you're nervous." He walked over and kissed her forehead. "Only when I look at you." "Smooth talker," she teased. He laughed quietly. "Get dressed, Queen. I want to take you somewhere." They drove out of Seoul, past the glittering towers and noisy streets, until the road curved toward the mountains. The air turned cooler, cleaner. At the top of a hill sat a private villa that overlooked the entire city. Queen gasped as she stepped out of the car. The place looked like a dream. Hundreds of candles flickered along the pathway, and a soft melody played from hidden speakers. Flower petals covered the ground. She turned to him, suspicious. "What's this?" He shrugged lightly. "A thank you." "A thank you doesn't look this expensive," she said, eyes narrowing. He smiled. "Then call it something else." She blushed, shaking her head. "You never stop with surprises, do you?" "I'm trying to learn," he said softly. Inside the villa, dinner was already set. Golden lights, crystal glasses, 2 plates of perfectly arranged food. Queen sat opposite him, still in awe. "This is beautiful," she said. "So are you." She rolled her eyes but smiled. "You've changed, Juntae." He nodded slowly. "Because of you." They ate quietly for a while, talking about small things, the baby's habits, her favorite songs, the way she still hated how he drank black coffee. The easy laughter that filled the room felt natural, like they'd been together for years. When dessert came, Queen reached for her fork, but Juntae stopped her hand gently. "Before you eat that," he said, standing up, "I need to say something." Her heart began to race. "What are you doing?" He pulled the small velvet box from his pocket and got down on one knee. Queen froze, her breath catching. "Queen," he began, voice trembling slightly, "the day you walked into my life, I thought you were just another business deal. I paid for your body, but somewhere along the way, I fell in love with your soul. You gave me a son, you gave me peace, and you gave me a reason to believe that even monsters like me can be loved." Tears filled her eyes. "Juntae." He opened the box. The diamonds sparkled like the city lights below. "I don't deserve you," he said, "but if you'll let me, I want to spend the rest of my life trying to." The world around them went silent. Queen's lips trembled as she whispered, "Yes." He blinked. "Yes. Yes," she cried, laughing through tears. "Of course, yes." Juntae stood quickly, sliding the ring onto her finger before pulling her into his arms. She wrapped her arms around his neck, crying against his chest as he whispered into her hair, "You're mine, Queen. From this moment on, you're mine." "And you're mine," she said softly. "No contracts this time." He smiled. "No contracts." He kissed her, slow, deep, tender. The candles flickered around them as if the world itself was blessing their moment. But happiness, in the Mafia world, never lasts long. That same night, as Queen fed the baby in the nursery of the villa, Juntae received a call that made his blood run cold. "Boss." His right-hand man's voice came through the speaker, trembling. "It's about Minsu." Juntae frowned. "What about him?" He sold our shipment locations to the Russians. They ambushed the convoy. 2 of our men are dead." Juntae's jaw clenched. Minsu had been with him for 10 years. Betrayal from family cut deeper than bullets. "Where is he now?" "We don't know. But there's more." He told them about Queen. The air froze around him. "What did you just say?" "They know you have a woman and a child." "Boss, they're coming for her." Juntae's heart stopped. He ended the call and stormed toward the nursery. Queen looked up, startled by his expression. "What's wrong?" "Pack your things," he ordered, voice tight. "Now." "Juntae, you're scaring me." "Don't argue, Queen," he barked, louder than he meant to. The baby stirred and began to cry. He immediately softened, touching her arm. "Please, just trust me." Her hands shook as she began gathering the baby's things. "Tell me what's happening." He zipped up a duffel bag, eyes scanning the windows. "Someone I trusted betrayed me. They know about you. They might already be on their way." Queen's chest tightened. "You said we were safe." "I thought we were," he said, voice cracking. "But in my world, safety doesn't last." She clutched the baby close to her chest. "Then let's run. Together." He nodded. "We will. I'll get you somewhere safe." Within minutes, they were in the car, the baby wrapped in blankets. The rain had started again, pounding against the windshield as Juntae drove through the night. His jaw was tense, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Queen sat silently, tears sliding down her face as she looked at him. "Juntae." He glanced at her. "Yeah, if we make it out of this, promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll leave this world behind. For him." She looked down at the baby. "He deserves peace." Juntae swallowed hard. "I promise." The car sped down the dark road. For a moment it felt like they might actually escape. But just as the city lights disappeared behind them, 2 black SUVs appeared in the rearview mirror, speeding fast. Juntae's heart dropped. "Hold on tight." Queen turned in her seat, her eyes wide. "Are they?" "Yes." Gunfire erupted. The back window shattered. Queen screamed, ducking over the baby as Juntae swerved sharply, glass raining around them. He grabbed the gun from his glove box and fired back through the window. "Don't move," he shouted. The road twisted ahead, a sharp curve along the cliffs. The rain made it slick. The SUVs closed in, bullets flying. One tire blew, and the car spun violently. Queen screamed as the world flipped in flashes of light, sound, and pain. Then everything went black. When the world returned, it was faint and cold. Rain tapped gently on metal. Queen opened her eyes slowly, her head throbbing. The baby was crying softly beside her. Alive. Relief washed through her, until she turned and saw Juntae slumped against the steering wheel, blood dripping from his forehead. "Juntae!" she cried, reaching for him. "Juntae, please." He stirred faintly, his voice barely a whisper. "Are you both okay?" "Yes," she sobbed. "We're okay. Don't move, please." He smiled weakly. "Good. Then I did something right." Tears streamed down her face. "Don't you dare say goodbye." He lifted his trembling hand, brushing her cheek. "I love you, Queen." "Don't," she cried. "You're not dying on me. Do you hear me?" Sirens echoed faintly in the distance, approaching fast. Queen clutched his hand, refusing to let go. "Stay with me, Juntae," she whispered through sobs. "Stay with me." He blinked slowly, his eyes fixed on her face, the only calm in his storm. Then everything went silent again. Rain kept whispering against the twisted car as Queen clung to Juntae's hand. His blood warmed her fingers, then cooled. The sirens that had sounded so far away finally burst into the night, red lights slicing through the darkness. "Over here!" a voice shouted. Hands pulled her away, She screamed until her throat tore. The baby was lifted from her lap, still crying but safe. Paramedics pried June-tae from the driver's seat. Queen's world blurred. Metal, rain, flashing lights. Hours later, fluorescent light replaced the storm. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and fear. Queen sat in a wheelchair in the corridor, a blanket around her shoulders, eyes fixed on the surgery doors. Every tick of the clock scraped against her nerves. A nurse whispered, "He lost a lot of blood, but the doctors are doing everything they can." Queen nodded numbly, clutching her son to her chest. "You hear that, little one? Daddy's fighting." She rocked back and forth, humming the same tune she'd sung in the nursery, half lullaby, half prayer. When the doors finally opened, the surgeon removed his mask. "He made it," he said, voice tired. "He'll need time, but he's alive." The words cracked something inside her. Queen pressed her face to the baby's head and sobbed with relief. Days passed. June-tae lay pale against white sheets, machines humming beside him. Bandages covered his arm and shoulder. Queen never left. She slept in the chair, feeding the baby, watching him breathe. One afternoon, his fingers twitched. "June-tae?" she whispered, leaning close. His eyes fluttered open. "Queen." His voice was weak, but it was there. She laughed and cried at once. "You scared me." He smiled faintly. "Still here. Told you I'd stay. Don't ever do that again." "Can't promise," he murmured. "But I'll try." She brushed his hair back. "Minsu betrayed you. But you're done with that life now, right?" He nodded slowly. "I already gave the order," he's caught. "But I'm finished. Queen, no more blood, no more guns. I want a life that doesn't make you cry." Her tears fell freely. "Then that's the only promise I need." Weeks later, he was walking again. The mansion was sold. His empire handed to his second-in-command with one final warning. "Never come near my family." Queen watched as he signed the last document. The man who once ruled Seoul's underworld laid down his crown. "What now?" she asked quietly. He looked at her and smiled. The kind of smile she'd never seen before. "Now we start over." They moved to the southern coast, to a small seaside town where no one knew their names. Their new house was simple. White walls, wooden floors, the scent of salt in every breeze. The first morning there, Queen stood on the balcony with her baby in her arms. Waves crashed gently below. June-tae came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "No bodyguards, no enemies, just us," she whispered. He kissed her shoulder. "Just us." They spent their days learning ordinary things. Burning breakfast, fixing leaky pipes, walking along the beach while the baby laughed at seagulls. Queen had never known quiet could feel so rich. At night, when the baby was asleep, June-tae would rest his head on her lap. "You know," he said once, "I thought love was weakness. And now?" she asked. "Now I know it's the only thing that ever made me strong." She smiled, fingers threading through his hair. "About time you figured that out." 1 year later, their son, Taemin, was taking his first steps across the sand, wobbling toward the surf. Queen chased after him, laughing, while June-tae filmed on an old camera. The wind caught her hair, and he swore the sight could stop time. When she came back, breathless, he handed her a seashell. "For the queen of my world," he said. She rolled her eyes playfully. "Still cheesy." He grinned. "Still yours." They sat together watching their son build crooked castles. The sun sank into the horizon, painting the water gold. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked softly. "The money? The danger?" He shook his head. "Nothing was worth losing this." She leaned against him. "You really kept your promise." "I had to," he said. "You made me one too, remember? You said where I go, you go. And I meant it." That night, after putting Taemin to sleep, they sat on the porch, the sea whispering below. Fireflies blinked in the dark. Queen rested her head on his shoulder. "You think the world will ever believe our story?" June-tae laughed quietly. "Probably not. Let them think what they want." She turned his face toward hers. "Then what's the truth?" He looked at her for a long time, eyes soft, voice low. The truth is, I paid you to carry my child, but you carried my heart instead. She smiled through a tear. And I'll never give it back. He kissed her gently, the kind of kiss that spoke of years still to come, of mornings and lullabies and peace they'd fought to earn. The tide rolled in, erasing every footprint on the sand below. For the first time in his life, Juntae didn't care about power or fear or the past. He had everything he'd ever wanted sitting right beside him. And as the stars rose over the quiet sea, Queen whispered the last words of the night. We made it, Juntae. We finally made it. He tightened his arm around her. Forever, Queen. The waves answered softly, carrying their promise into the dark.
Hello, besties. In this story, we learned that love built on real emotions, not contracts or conditions, is what transforms even the coldest heart. It also reminds us that healing and redemption are possible when two people choose each other beyond pride, pain, or past mistakes. Thank you so much for watching. Kindly like, subscribe, and share.